All right. Mic is so short. I have to come to the mic. Sorry, y'all. All right. Now, okay. How to get it? Make it happen. Everybody can see everything. All right. Let's make it. What's up, Jane? Look at that. Tonight, I don't have my normal. Green tea. I was sitting here and at my desk doing some other work, and my wife was like, "You want some hot chocolate?" And then she was like, "Oh, you got your show tonight. Never mind." And I'm like, "Why never mind? Why can't I have hot chocolate?" And she's like, "Cause you about to do the show." And I'm like, "That don't, one show don't stop no show." So I got hot chocolate for the first time. Definitely hot. Anyway, so now I got some vegan hot chocolate with some vegan marshmallows, oat milk, hot, non-dairy hot chocolate. And I don't know where she get them marshmallows from, but she assures me it's vegan. And I ain't caught her in a lie yet. 23 years. Oh, I did catch her in a lie. I did catch my wife in a lie one time. But she don't like me telling her business. But nothing major. Nothing worth nothing. It ain't nothing juicy. I know. But anyway, welcome to the BroDiallo broadcast. Of course, I'm broadcasting straight out of the sanctuary hypocrisy. But I don't know. Chicago still a sanctuary city, y'all? Is Chicago still a sanctuary city? I don't know. I know, brothers. I mean, the Black City Council members, man, they fighting hard, going hard in the paint to make Chicago something it never was to take. But the sanctuary hypocrisy of the city of Chirac, state of Illinois, in the United States of America. In the, what else? Oh, in the misnamed Milky Way galaxy, on the over-ravaged, hyper-destroyed, hyper-exploited planet Earth. It feels weird saying that from here, this new setup I got. But, like I said, it's going to take time. Oh, where's my spoon? Oh, shit. Give me 1 second. Forget it. We'll go on without it. But anyway, I just want to get through this. I know this is a topic that has been plaguing me. This is an issue that I don't even think we should be having to discuss in the year 2023. I think we should have already had this shit settled. But, I bring this up because it's something that people just been on my neck, been on me, hollering at me. I've even received some challenges and some threats behind this particular issue. So I figured, obviously, it's something that we're still struggling with as a community, and many of y'all struggling with individually. So I'm gonna talk about it, because what else do you do when you have an unresolved issue? What do they say? Communication is key. And in my relationship with my people and my status within my people's struggles, I think that we're going to just keep hashing it out until we get through it. But before we get into the topic, there's some things I want to talk about, some things that y'all do that bother me. Because I was going to talk about some things that I'm doing to bother y'all, but y'all do a lot of shit that bothers me. So let me complain to y'all about what y'all ain't doing right. One thing is that there was a recent report that the pig that murdered our brother George Floyd had been stabbed 22 times in prison. And I see everybody rejoicing about this and like, yeah, got it coming, woo, 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 just running their mouth about how this is somehow a win for the black community or somehow justice or somehow deserved. And it made me think about when R. Kelly was finally convicted for his crimes and sentenced to significant jail time, and all these people were posting these slick comments and mockery about the potential for R. Kelly to be raped in prison, and saying that he's got it coming or he's going to know how his victims fell, and literally anticipating, mocking, and celebrating the potential that R. Kelly will be raped in prison, going to jail as a rapist, or that Chauvin is being brutalized or murdered in prison, going there being a person who brutalized or murdered somebody. But I think that overlooks the very important issue. The vast majority of people in jail are not killer cops. In fact, the vast majority of killer cops, when they murder us, they get pensions, they get paid vacation, they get exonerated. They become folk heroes amongst the white masses. So Derek Chauvin's experience is atypical. And most people that go to prison are not international superstars who ran basically sex trafficking and sex cult operations. The vast majority people in prison are poor and working class people. So when we hear about a famous person or infamous person going through something in jail that we all know about, or that we all agree is a villain, you should have enough empathy and understanding that translates across prison and overall. Just 3 to 4 years back, there was a massive prison uprisings, hunger strikes, and the prison solidarity movement from going back to that went alongside the civil rights movement, because the vast majority of people who will see the inside of jail cells really don't deserve to be there, or are of the lower rung of society, the most vulnerable people in society. So what you see happening, prison rape and the dehumanizing, unrelenting violence within prison is not something that is reserved for the villains or something that is reserved for the rapists or the superstars. So it's just problematic to me, because to mock the potential for R. Kelly to be raped in prison is to support rape culture in the whole society. And it's an acknowledgement that you understand that there are thousands, if not millions, of men, women, and children being sexually exploited, brutally raped within prisons. And the prison authorities and the state governments, the few that care, that try to do something, make it a low priority. And the most of them don't care. Most of them, and even people in society. And that's going to be disproportionately Black men, women, and children. Disproportionately poor Black men, women, and children who didn't give opportunities, who we see the statistics all the time. How do you turn around, share the statistics saying that a Black man and a white man who commit the same crime, where the Black man has over 60 to 75% higher chances of doing time, where the white offender will get probation or some other type of mitigation. We just went through, I was raised in the war on drugs. I was at ground zero for the war on drugs and saw everything from Reagan. I wasn't old enough to be around for Nixon's war on drugs, but I was dead center for Reagan and Bill Clinton's mass incarceration campaigns, and how drugs and legal policy ravished our community. My two best friends in childhood. I just have a friend who just made I think what are you 52, 53? And I think this year will be the first year he spent the majority of his life out of prison. I have another homie who spent the most of his 20s and his entire 30s in prison for shit that if they were affluent white boys, they wouldn't even have got probation on. So it's disturbing to me, no matter who it happens to, for black people to acknowledge how prison operates and to mock it. That bothered me. And when I said that, when I said R. Kelly rape jokes perpetuate rape culture in the society, everybody jumped on me, and now some people are going to misconstrue this to say that I'm defending or somehow have sympathy for Derek Chauvin. Because y'all quick to mock Chauvins, but how many times do you show the adolescent that gets extorted? You know, there are young people, 14, 15-year-old children in jail for nonviolent offenses. And they have to get on the phone and beg their mama to put something on their books, beg their mother to put something on their commissary so they won't be stabbed, so that they won't be raped or trafficked within the prison. So every Derek Chauvin that gets stabbed up, gets poked up, gets lifelong injuries and traumas in jail, there are literally thousands of Khalif Browders. And how can you at one time understand that Khalif Browder is the more likely scenario? The young man that was locked up for a false accusation, spent 19 months in prison, and was so traumatized when they released him, he committed suicide. So I don't think the violence was in prison. You know, I even be watching some like mainstream shows that I like. Some of the shows I like goofy shit, you know, Family Guy and shit, making jokes about prison rape. So prison rape and prison violence, once you are incarcerated, I've been arrested a few times, never been convicted or did any time. You know, it's mostly for little shit. Like I said, I told y'all about my little rap sheet. You know, you go to a protest and they'll lock you up for disorderly conduct or riot. And then by the time the court case come a year and a half later and they let that shit hang over your head, you're looking at 3 to 5 years. And you walk in and they get you for trespassing or some shit like that. They give you a jaywalk citation and little shit, make you pay a fine. You know how that shit. But they try to discourage you from taking action against, you know, injustice. But I just think that when we hear about a villain getting his comeuppance, understand how rare that is. But that's me. That's me. So Derek Chauvin getting stabbed, he wasn't even stabbed up by like a black person. They said a guy that stabbed, it was over some jailhouse politics shit. So it wasn't even like taking a fight for justice. So I just think that I think the conditions behind the walls in prisons, jails, penitentiaries, holding cells, even paddy wagons, man, they get us at every level. If you ever been in the back of one of those goddamn prison transport trucks, if you ever go up the Chicago Loop, because here in Chicago, there's a constant conveyor belt of young, predominantly black men, but men, women, and children, and elders even. There's a conveyor belt of black people from within the city of Chicago, mainly South Side, West Side, that are going into the system. And then they have to be shipped out to the various rural areas to provide jobs, income, and stability for the white folks who used to be racist farmers, but then their farm gets consolidated or foreclosed, or they get addicted to meth, who used to work in the mills and work various industries, the white working class of Southern Illinois, of rural Illinois. And so then the new commodity is black bodies. And shout out to Representative Ford. I've worked on Ford's campaign. He's a state representative, but he ran for mayor a couple of elections ago. And I worked on his campaign on the policy end. But he actually was working on demographics, saying that if you have a person incarcerated in the census, you count them in the community that they live, not in the jails. Because not only were they using our bodies for generate revenues and free labor, they were using black bodies in rural, white, predominantly white Illinois to generate federal income and to expand their overall census status, getting more set aside. It was just hyper exploitation of black bodies. But anyway, if you're ever driving around the loop, you're inevitably going to see these prison transport trucks. And it's like I said, it's a conveyor belt of black bodies being shipped out. Just like, I'm sure if you go to see our brothers and sisters in the Niger Delta and you see the trains and trucks taking out the oil. You go to our brothers and sisters in the Congo and you see the trucks taking out the goddamn coltan and diamonds and gold. And you come to downtown Chicago where that big skyscraper prison. They got a skyscraper that blends in with all the other skyscrapers, except for most of the skyscrapers have those big glass frame steel windows. This one just has little slits. Stories and hundreds of feet of these little slits. That's the jail. But they made it blend in with the rest of the beautiful downtown skyline. And you see, you come to our community, just it's another colonial situation. But we ain't got gold for them to steal. We ain't got diamond for them to steal. We ain't got oil for them to steal. We ain't got crops for them to steal. We got black bodies. And when they send those bodies out, those bodies are working in textiles. Those bodies are making circuit boards. Those bodies are working on automobiles. The prison industries in this city and around the country are crazy. And when you see the prison transport, they can't even look at, they're shipping you away from your family, maybe for life. And you can't even look at the skyline. Just the way they construct those buses. So I don't think black people should play about prison. I don't think black people should play about prison. Man, imagine millions of Jews going to the gas chamber and then one Nazi falls in. One Nazi soldier falls into the gas chambers and the Jews are like, yeah, haha. I just don't, that's just not how, it just bothers me. Because when I think about Derek being stabbed, that one cop, what's the percentage of cops who commit offenses and atrocities go to prison? How many young black boys? How many young black girls? How many lifers? Old cats? 50. How many black people were stabbed in the prison yesterday, today? How many will be stabbed tomorrow and we won't even make note of it? Lifelong injuries. So that's all that reminded me. Reading about that scumbag pig, Caucasus Mountain cave dwelling devil, him getting stabbed up really brought to the fore again how our people are being treated, inhumane. Even white folks, even white people, even international bodies, Amnesty International, or like the United States has some of the most inhumane prisons. Have the largest prison. Y'all know the stats. I ain't gonna get into the stats. I'm not going to get into the stats. I just think we should be more empathetic and more responsible. I mean, if anything, you could use that maybe to get some racist crackers, some right-wing crackers, some right-wing policymakers, some right-wing racists to say, hey, prisons are violent. Some of y'all people in there too. Maybe y'all could do something too. They know everything they need to do. They got prisons with some of the most violent offenders that they have relatively low rates of violence. They provoke and cultivate violence. So I think every black person that's conscious and humane should be conscious and aware of the because you're confined. You're confined. It's like not like here. There's certain areas in this city where I know if I go, there's trouble. It's a high potential for violence or harm. So I can at least make the choice not to go there. Brothers in jail ain't got that option. And they literally cultivate an environment to keep them brothers at each other's throats because they can't control that many people unless they are focused on everything except the source of their harm. Prison abolition. Prisons do not help keep us safer, and they do not reform people. They do not help people. I might have to have my homeboy in here. He went in I ain't gonna be telling people's business. Y'all know a lot of people go into jails, delinquents, petty criminals, vandals, and come out hardened, well-trained criminals. So, and another thing y'all do, this is along that same lines. Henry Kissinger just died at 100 years old, 99, 100. I don't know his exact age, but he's been out of public life for some time. And people celebrating Kissinger's death at 100. Not only did he die at 100, he died. Let me see. This motherfucker died at 100 years old. He had his personal net worth was over $50 million. And he's a white man with an intelligence program. So you know his personal wealth is at least 5 times that with offshore and shit. So this motherfucker lived and died rich, killed millions of people. What is there to celebrate about his death? That's just like Queen Elizabeth dying at 150 years old. Why do we celebrate with? Do we think these people are immortal? I don't understand that. How is Kissinger's death anything for his victims? Africans, Cambodians, Central and South Americans. I mean, it's continents. I can't even name countries. This man committed atrocities across continents. How is his death a victory? How is the way he died and the way he lived anyway demonstrate something or give us something we celebrate? I have to quote Dale Jones. I'm going to do one show where I don't quote Brother Dale. Nana Kuntu. We lose so much we don't know what victory looks like. We lose so much we do not know what victory looks like. I mean, that just... It's just like Dick Gregory was like, y'all giving, how you going to claim you taking somebody down? Our method of taking down our enemies is old age. Yeah. Because the only way you could celebrate his death and think his death is somehow an accomplishment, because he's, and here's the thing about Kissinger, he's an extremely evil man, all that. But guess what? All the evils are still going. They were going before him and they're going after him. He committed personal crimes and atrocities. So I just say, never faced trial, never convicted. He was red carpet. If you know about Kissinger, he's famous for saying that power is the greatest aphrodisiac. I mean, everything a psychopathic capitalist could ask for, he had it. Wealth, fame, status, power, and the ability to with the stroke of his pen, kill millions of people. And he died at 100, well past his own life expectancy. I just don't understand this celebration. Queen Elizabeth, I don't understand. So that's two or three things that y'all do that bother me. But something good. Shit. Want to acknowledge on this day, December 4th, Chairman Fred Hampton was assassinated by the Chicago Police Department in coordination with the FBI COINTEL program. I've been in Chicago for like a decade now, and let me tell you something. Every day I see the fallout from the loss of Chairman Fred Hampton. And all these crackers in power and status in this city that's talk about the crime and the dysfunction coming out of the South Side, coming out of the Black community. They prefer that over us being revolutionary. But anyway, let's get to the topic. So I'm gonna end up saying some things I don't want to say. Today's topic is male chauvinist murder cults. And that's from a famous or infamous quote from Dr. John Henry Clark, where he said all organized. Well, it's different. Let me just find the actual quote. You think I would have looked this up since I was going to talk about this today? Okay, let's see if I can find the direct quote, because I just been paraphrasing this, because like the part that I got down. Oh, here it is. Because I changed words around, and now that I've been hanging out with Dr. Ball, he's a stickler. Oh, nerdy ass Dr. Ball. That's not exactly how. So I like to put some seasoning in my quotations. But now I have to. So Dr. John Henry Clark is quoted as saying, all organized present religions are male chauvinist murder cults. And I say that there is no exception. And it's true. And I was going to talk about Hinduism and Buddhism. Now, in the past, I said all Abrahamic religions, all Western religions, all world religions, but he says all organized religions are male chauvinist murder cults. And he says there is no exception. And to all you people who adhere to non-Christian, Jewish, or what's the other one? Islamic religions, think y'all not in this. He's talking about y'all male chauvinist murder cults too. But and like I said, if y'all want to continue this discussion, I could really cook with and get down on some Hinduism. And I've been having issues because for many years as a youth and throughout the cultural struggle, I would visit some conscious, positive brother or sisters, and I come into their house, and along with the ancestral shrine, or their symbols and offerings to the Orisha, or their resin copper pyramid and the Kemetic ancestors and their cowrie shells, there'd be inevitably be some Buddhist or Hindu symbol, or Buddhist or Hindu quote, or even I Ching. Like black folks, especially in the 90s, got really, really into like Eastern mysticism, Eastern religions, and everybody and their mama do yoga, including me. They got some gong or some shit, and I would always yes, Taoism, male chauvinist murder cult. Yes, even Confucianism, even though it's not a deist religion, it doesn't have a god. It's male and it's chauvinist. So, that's the direct quote. So if you hear me put some seasoning in it, it's because I think that's appropriate. But all organized present religions are male chauvinist murder cults, and I say there is no exception. And I had a sister, a Muslim sister, who came on to formally debate me on this issue, to say that Islam is not a murder cult. I've had family members and everybody else who knows that I agree, and I often repeat this, that Christianity is not a murder cult. I've had a few Hebrew Israelites, even on this show, I've debated. In fact, I've debated on air, either on Black Power Media or on Diallo Kenyatta's YouTube. I've debated Muslims or gone back and forth with Muslims. Sometimes I'm not even talking, the topic wasn't Islam, but inevitably they got to go out and come out swinging for their deity. So I've gone back and forth with way back. I've gone back. I've had an opportunity to directly, formally or informally debate a Muslim, a Black Hebrew Israelite. This one, it wasn't recorded, but I even debated a Jewish dude who was at Brooklyn College, who was a progressive leftist radical Jew, but a Jew nonetheless, still a practicing Jew. So, and he says what a lot of y'all tell me, you could do a lot more if you stop talking about people's delusions, religions. And so I pretty much have had a formal or semi formal debate with every religious person except a Christian. A Christian has never been like, there was one, I've had two. There was this Florida pastor This Florida pastor was like, brother, I want you to come down to Florida. And he was a young pastor, like in his early 30s, which is really young for somebody to be of the cloth, and in early 30s. And he calls like, I've been going back and forth with you, and everything you've said in your show about my God and my faith and blah, blah, blah. And I've been taking notes and I've been compiling some responses. And I want you to come down here to Florida and speak to my community and my congregation. Woo, woo, woo. And I said, absolutely. I said, I appreciate the invitation. And what would I be, or how would I look if I refused to come down there upon invitation? So I said, give me the time and a ticket and I'll come down to Florida. I didn't even know what parts. And he said, which I knew that shit was going to blow it up. He was like, okay, I just have to talk to my elders or talk to my administrators or deacons. He had to get approval from the budget to bring, because they bring guests down there all the time. And that was that. They were like, hell no, you're not bringing him down. So that was one. There was another time that a Christian said he wanted to come and talk to me about his faith. And I'm like, let me know when you're available and I'd be willing to come. And he says that he just hasn't been able to make time. There was another black woman, a black Obia woman. Like, I think she was kind of a mash between a witch, Wicca. She practiced Wicca, and she just kind of created her own religion using Wiccan paganism and African spiritualism and spookism. I don't know. And she wanted to come and confront me about my mockery and dismissal of the supernatural, and her assertions that the supernatural and the ancestors are key components in our survival of slavery, are getting emancipated from slavery, and that without those supernatural components, we would still be shackled and chained. And she and my man Chauncey was like, we were going to do it online, and Chauncey's like, I'll fly you into the studio. I want to see this. And Chauncey knew this sister and thought this sister had good insights, could maybe help me to awaken to my higher vibrations. And she refused. She bailed out and refused. So I've had opportunities to engage most belief systems, most value systems, except the main, like Christianity. And Christians are like, we're established. The debate is over. We won. We got the nukes. Anyway. I think this is necessary work. It's kind of weird to me that people can convince themselves that's how someone interprets reality is irrelevant to their political work and relevant to who they are as a person. It don't matter. Let's just do the work. You know, who cares if I think you're an infidel who will burn for eternity? Let's get together and work. I'm not saying I wouldn't work with a religious person, but that's going to be in my mind. In fact, I will say, in order to be truly revolutionary, truly transformative, I say that you should consistently, deliberately, and publicly mock, expose, and disempower religion. I say that if you are truly a good person, and I'm gonna just be honest. I'm gonna tell the truth, because everybody thinks they know what I think, and they even know why I think it. But we don't want to live in a world where religion comes back to power, and that sounds inauthentic for me to say, because I know religion has a tremendous amount of power. But if you are a student of history, the power that religion has over individuals or within cultures and systems is nowhere near what it used to be. And I, as a student of political policy and political science, will say the worst form of government, worse than an autocratic government, worse than the worst form of government is a theocratic government. And one of the greatest things humanity has accomplished is to detach religion from state power. Those rapists, murderers, scumbag founding fathers founding invaders, founding rapists. One good thing they did, and one thing they knew for sure, how you, one of the worst people in the world, you bring some of the worst people in the world together. These are people, the slave masters, the colonizers, people who were at the time that they come together are engaged in genocide, colonization, massive enslavement, and every other notable crime. And they're all in a room together and say, hey, let's come up with the government. And those wicked, horrible people are like, one thing we don't want is a theocracy. If George Washington and Thomas Jefferson, if them motherfuckers, if Jefferson Davis, if them motherfuckers could be like, I know I'm bad, but goddamn, I'm not a monster. That should give you some hint of what theocratic governance look like. And we don't even, unfortunately, I wish we would have to go to the history books to really see what a theocracy looks like. But now you can look at modern India, the most populous nation in the world. I think India's population, has it surpassed Japan? Where they have a Hindu nationalist government. You can look at, of course, we all know Saudi Arabia. But it leans more towards monarchy. Saudi Arabia. So there are still remnants of theocratic governance. And though they're horrible. They're horrible. So I think that this is a time where I know, even right now, if I was in certain parts of this world, even here in the United States, the liberal United States, I've had people threaten me and say out-of-pocket shit to and about me for my stance on religion. But I think you have to say it. If you have the ability to say it, you should do it. If you have a freedom or a power that you do not utilize and exercise, then you nullify that freedom. And I know we're not free. But if you do have a right or a freedom that you don't exercise, you essentially nullified it. So I say, I wish more people would join me in openly, publicly, and consistently challenging, mocking, exposing, and doing everything in their power to disempower formal religion. And I hope as we go forward in this discussion, you will understand the necessity of that. That I'm not doing this because I'm mean. I'm not doing this because, as people fallaciously say, I'm obsessed with religion. I'm doing this because if humanity, there are several indicators that the masses, that this society, that my community and people we have not fully escaped theocracy and theocratic dominance. We could slip back into it. And so that is a looming threat, along with being re-enslaved, neo-colonialism, neo-theocracy is also a looming threat that has certain elements that are already present. And it could only get worse. And believe you me, you do not, even if you believe in God, even if you bump your head on the floor at the mosque, even if you do the chicken dance in the tabernacle, even if you believe that Yahweh commanded the Europeans to put you on a boat and send you to the world, and you are a member of the lost tribe of Israel or Judah. Even if you believe that shit, believe you me, you are better off believing that shit in a secular environment. Because let's say, even just look at all these fucking groups. You're a Muslim and you go live in a Muslim theocracy, or you're a Christian and you live in a Christian, or you're a Hebrew and you live in a Zionist or Jewish theocracy. Guess what's going to happen? Are you the right kind of Hebrew? Just in this city alone. Do you know how many factions of the Black Hebrew Israelites exist? Just in this city? I promise you there are more factions of Christian and more factions of Christianity in this city than there are street gangs. So even if you're a believer, believe you me, people are, oh, God's will be done. You don't want God's will to be done. You do not want to live under scripture and impose scripture. You don't want to live under the Quran. I promise you. But anyway, let's go. First thing, and I just want to lay some groundwork on my views. I am not just an atheist, I'm anti-theist. I think that religion, to the extent that anyone can, needs to be disempowered. That doesn't mean I in no way would ever deny anyone their right to practice and worship as they see fit, as long as their practice and worship does not unjustly impose on others. So you have every right to believe wholeheartedly whatever the blood clot you want to believe. But you cannot legislate other people believe it. So you believe that God makes the babies and life begins at conception, and then a man has no rights and women shouldn't get there. You can believe whatever you want. And if you find a woman that believes with you and you can converse her to shave her head, to wear a burqa, to walk 3 feet behind you, or to never speak her opinion or challenge you in public, and to birth infinite amount of children for you, regardless of what she wants or her own well-being and health. If you can convince a woman to do that, I'd leave you to it. But there's never been a religion or cult that did not eventually seek to take state power. I mean, and I don't blame them, because I promise you, if I thought I had all the wisdom of all the universe and the higher being that was guiding me, why would I just be content to govern myself? Why would I just be content to govern my wife and dominate my wife? Why would I be content with governing my wife, children, or my community? I should rule the world. It's a logical step to an illogical fallacy or illogical delusion. It's a logical conclusion to an illogical delusion. I'm starting to sound like Jesse. I've been in Chicago too long. You see when Jesse, the Chicago cats start to. So that's why I don't believe in religious repression. Religious repression is disallowing an individual to make individual choices about what they will believe and how they worship. I don't condone that. I don't think we should close any churches or any mosque. But two things. I don't think that those who don't believe should in any way be silenced in articulating and asserting their positions. And I don't think, based on their beliefs, that you can justify anything for anyone else. I believe this, therefore you should do that or don't do that. So I don't think any privileges or restrictions should be imposed on anyone based on another person's beliefs or faith. Faith in itself is dishonesty. Faith is dishonest. Faith is literally a lie. They even said in the definition, belief in things unseen. Now, when you talk about belief in things unseen, and people look at you like you're a person that should be commended. Wow, this person believes in things unseen. And not only does he believe in things unseen, mentally, he takes actions and structures his whole life over shit he knows not. Faith is immune to evidence. Faith is immune to argument. Faith is immune to reality. It is a person of faith. If they had faith in anything else, if you went, or if someone came to you, if someone you loved and says, listen, I'm about to buy this house, what you gonna say? Did you get an inspection? Nope. I'm buying it on faith. Did you confirm the paperwork that the person selling you this house is a licensed realtor? Nope. I'm buying this house on faith. You would be distressed if you cared about that person. You would challenge that person. You would employ that person to not act on faith when buying a house or buying a car or seeking attention for a medical problem. I got this medical issue. I'm going to just go to the doctor. Is it a certified physician? Is he board certified? Is he experienced? Does he take your insurance? I don't know. None of that. I don't need to know. I'm going to the doctor on faith. Faith anywhere else, we immediately would see a person acting on faith as a foolish person. It would cause, if we care about a person and we see them acting on faith, it would distress us. It would distress us. Right? If your loved one came home, or so your child came home, or someone you were close to came home and says, listen, I met this person. Where did you meet him? Well, I didn't meet him. I just heard of him. I was told about him. He's a great guy and I love him. I'm going to dedicate my life to him. And I'm going to send them 10% of the money I make every month. 10% of everything I own. But you never met the person. No, but I feel him. You'd be like, hey, you would want that person to seek professional help. But if they tell you, oh, no, I'm talking about God, Allah, Yahweh, then you'd be like, oh, of course. Oh, I'm so happy for you. I'm so glad for you. If you apply the logic of religion to anything else in reality, it becomes a nightmare. It becomes horrific. But the trick is, it's also a nightmare and horrific in reality. If you apply any level of logic, I tell especially people of the monotheistic religions, apply your logic and rationale for not believing in Thor, for not believing in Okulukugu, for not believing in the Aztec god, and apply that logic to your own God. And what do you come up with? They don't like answering that question. They don't like answering that question. I also say all the time, I ask this question, and I never get an honest, direct answer. I ask people of faith, what would the world look like if God was a figment of human imagination? And the best answer they come up with, it wouldn't look like nothing, because nothing would exist without God. But other than that, I never get a rational answer, because we actually live in a world where God is nothing. But going on. Religion still, even though we don't live in theocracy, and I'm very grateful for that, we still live in a time where religious institutions and religious individuals have too much power within human civilization and within culture, especially Black communities, Black nations, and Black culture in particular. Religion has too much status and power to where I've been excluded. You know, I'm like Eazy-E in that one song, I'm back on the street and my record is clean. Then after that, the rap kind of falls apart. But my record is clean in the movement. I'm telling you, I've been a part of many actions and many movements. I ain't stole. I ain't swindled. My record in the struggle is clean, but it's people that won't come anywhere near me within the movement. Not because I have done something wrong, simply because I'm saying, I don't mess with religion and I'm more than willing to be called for account. How dare you say this? Like I said, I was going to get invited somewhere to speak. I come talk. I plead my case. I justify my position. However, whatever justification is whether you want testimonial or research, whatever, personal testimony or peer-reviewed research, I can support my conclusions. People are like, I don't want nothing to do with this dude. Because religion. And I said it before, I'll say it again. Imagine, some of y'all don't have to imagine because you've done this, but imagine talking to your own people about how much respect you should have for a religion that has committed unrelenting atrocities to your people. Imagine that. And I have to put it in context that y'all understand. I don't like to, maybe I don't have to, but I feel compelled. But can you imagine two Jewish men sitting around talking about the appropriate level of respect any random Jew should have for a Nazi? Can you imagine two Native American men sitting, debating and arguing and almost coming to blows about how much respect any Native American should have for a colonizer, for a pilgrim, for a settler? Can you imagine? Can you imagine two Palestinians sitting in a bomb shelter sitting in rubble, debating and arguing how much respect one should have for Zionism. But not a year, not a month goes by where I don't have to sit across from a black person and argue and debate and try to figure out the appropriate amount of respect a black man or any black person, me specifically, should have for Christianity, Islam, or Judaism. Unrelenting atrocities. Unrelenting atrocities. And it's not enough that half my goddamn people believe in one of those gods or the others. 90% of my people are the backbone of those faiths. That's not enough. You got to have this one random black dude bow down to. Total domination or nothing. So let's get into the more specifics. I say that Christianity, Judaism, and Islam are male chauvinist murder cults. And people are like, no, they're not. How dare you say that? Right? And so I'm going to answer that. That's a question. How dare you say that? I'm going to tell you how I dare. Right? First of all, let's talk about God. Right? There's two evidences of God. Two evidences of God. We draw God from the unknowable, meaning that things we don't know, we can say, well, God. If some phenomenon or something happens and we can't explain it, there's your God. There's your evidence of God, the unknown. Or false attribution, meaning something we know happens and we attribute it to God. And false attribution has grown quite a bit. It used to be people of faith and religions, not just the world religion, but in most religions, would engage in false attribution for earthquakes. Oh, there was an earthquake. Oh my God. There's an earthquake. That must be God's wrath. Because we didn't know anything about tectonic plates. We didn't have giant sonars that we could shoot into the ground. You know, we didn't have these submersibles, satellite imagery. So we didn't know about tectonic plates. So earthquake, God. And then when people who really believed, there's even people now who still, I remember the Haitian earthquake, and Pat Roberts came out and said, well, the Haitian earthquake was God's wrath because the Haitians made a pact with the devil to get out of slavery. And there were people like, well, so it's still people belligerently ignorant, militantly ignorant, undefined. Not only are they stupid, they are arrogant in their stupidity, right? So, but the God, earthquake, evidence of God, false attribution got blown up when humans learned about tectonic plates and understood the various levels of the globe. Lightning was another one. Just many weather events, tsunamis, tidal waves. But as we again understood atmospheric science, meteorology, tectonic plates, geology, geography, many of these false attributions fell by the wayside. And in a logical, if humans were or are allowed to be fully logical, they were like, wow, you know, all these years I thought, but that's evidence that God isn't real. False attribution. So they just would find something else to attribute to God. Disease. There was a time. If you were diseased, you called a shaman. If you were diseased, you'd make a sacrifice. Because humans didn't know about microbes. They didn't know about sterility. They didn't even know the basics of human anatomy and physiology. They understood if I'm hungry or thirsty, drinking and eating will do better. I know eating some foods will make you sick and some foods will not. They understood the gross anatomy and basic physiology. But the intricate nation, cancer and tumors, deformities and congenital diseases, people would say, oh, you must have upset the gods. Oh, you didn't make enough sacrifice. And then we learned about human anatomy and physiology. We understood that there were microscopic life forms bacteria. We understood cellular division, just medical science in general. And we began to understand, or if you see a rabid dog, that animal's possessed. Now we understand viruses. So all these false attributions throughout history, every time the Bible would make some absurdist claim, and people would say it was literal, and then through our own work, our defiance, because you look at how many scientists, philosophers, researchers that have been persecuted by the church. And to give credit where credit is due, Islam didn't have this problem out the gate. Islam in its earliest stages, not now. Islam is in its, because Islam is pretty much following the pattern that Christianity followed. That's the thing. So I have to say, quote John Henry Clark again, of all the major religions, Islam is the most unoriginal. It's the most plagiarized religion taken from Christianity and Judaism. But I digress. So what did they do? What did the modern Christians do now? They were like, well, everything we said, disease and weather, ecological phenomenon, the king being a god man, or the divinity of kings, all this shit got disproven through human science and human inquiry. So now let's attribute God and pretend that God is abstract, because they used to be like literal. God is in that mountain. Don't go up that mountain. It's forbidden. Don't cut that tree. It's forbidden. You know, this is the covenant of God. Don't open it or you'll disintegrate. Weird shit. But they started saying, well, the origins of the universe and the cosmos. See, God is real because you don't know how the universe started. And because humans have not discovered definitively the origins of the universe, you don't know it, regardless of how many, theories that are related to that have scientific standing, that can be examined. You say, well, until the origins of the universe, the origins of life. How did life start? How did life come to be? Consciousness, beauty, morality. So now they used to say concrete shit was evidence of God. But if you say concrete shit is evidence of God, now we got microscopes. Now we got telescopes. Now we got sonograms. Now we got peer review. Now we got all that shit. So they can't say that. So now you'll notice that when you really push a believer to talk about evidence of God, it'll be something abstract, something you can't test, something you can't lock down. Oh, you woke up this morning. When before I say, how do you know God is real? Remember that time your child got sick? That's that day you had cursed somebody out. You were shooting dice one day, and then you came home and your child was sick. And then you said, oh Lord, I'm so sorry I was shooting dice that day. And then a few weeks later, your child got better. There's evidence of God. They used to say concrete shit you could actually test. Like, oh wow, there's really no connection between me shooting dice or me committing sin and my child's sickness. There's no evidence of that. God wasn't trying to do a little Job number on me. So now they say you'll find that, oh, well, look around you. The fact you exist is God. This shit that can't be tested. That's a hustle. Now they went from literal evidence of God to abstract evidence of God, because there is no evidence of God. And all quote unquote evidence of God is false attribution. Known and unknown, of things unknown. You don't know what happened. Oh, you don't know how that happened. You don't know what well, that was God. And again, once again, if my wife came to me and said, you ain't helping around the house, you're not helping to clean up. It's like, oh, please, why would I help to clean up? If not for me, the sun wouldn't rise in the morning. So crops wouldn't grow. Rain wouldn't fall from the sky. So I do more than you. You should be cleaning more than the house. You should be cleaning the house and bowing down to me. My wife would be like, you goddamn fool. You ain't the one to make it rain and make the sun come out. Prove that I don't. Which he could. But let's go on. So I'm saying that there's no evidence of God. But there is evidence of man making God. Man have made thousands of gods. Men have made gods, bought them up, tossed them aside, and made a new God. So everything I say here about religion and its qualities, I'm not really blaming God because I can't. That's like me blaming Batman and Wayne Corporation for capitalism. And you can derive some analysis of class and crime and the judicial critique the judicial system through Batman and the Wayne Corp. I love all those. I've been a comic book fan and a fan of the supernatural and a fan of science fiction, all that shit. I was very, very nerdy kid. I used to read books about knights and wizards and space. That was my shit growing up. Still got stacks of comic books all over the place, right? I was always cool with that shit. But again, I would be afraid if I ever slipped into really literally not being able to distinguish between what's real and what isn't. Right? So, and I really know that there are a lot of lessons that can be taught through fiction. There was one time I was talking about, you should start to read nonfiction. And India Okorafor was like, why are you telling people to read nonfiction? I mean, just read nonfiction as if there's no value in fiction. And I said, you're right. And I had to change that stance because there's a lot of lessons I learned. I have to be honest. I learned as much as reading Things Fall Apart as I did. What's a really good app? They call The Colonized. What's that? The other book. I can't believe I'm having trouble thinking of this book. Okay, let me see. I learned as much as reading Things Fall Apart. Jesus Christ. I learned as much reading Things Fall Apart as I do reading Chinwezu or Frantz Fanon. There are a lot of lessons and insights about African history, African culture, the African mentality, African culture in fiction. So that's the thing. But I understand it's fiction. I understand Okonkwo was an archetype. He was not a real person. So I have no problem with fiction, and I don't deny that there can be wisdom or understanding gained from reading fiction. But the moment you start to take fiction literally or believe that fiction is fact, that's where you get into the realm of faith and delusion. So anyway, let's go down the line. I said that Christianity, I said most all religions, and definitely I could do a discussion of Hinduism and Buddhism if y'all want to get into that. But Christianity, Islam, and Judaism are male chauvinist murder codes, right? And so let's first talk about the chauvinistic term. And as I started really looking into the etymology or origins of the concept of chauvinism, it is really, 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 the men and women in religion have to be chauvinist. Now, chauvinism is actually a historical figure's name, but there is some argument about the person's actual name, because the name, it kind of like Old John Henry or Johnny Appleseed, where the myth of the person kind of overcame, or the story of the person kind of overcame the reality of the person. But basically, chauvinist is the name, or Chauvin. Nicholas Chauvin was like a simple-minded or you would call him today. If you met a dude like this today, you would call him a simp, which I shouldn't be calling nobody a simp as often as I'm called a simp. In fact, I was called gynocentric several months ago. And then another red pill alpha male follower of what's that guy? Kevin Samuels, Saint Kevin Samuels, a disciple of Saint Kevin Samuel, said that I submit to the gynocracy. So he said that we live under a gynocracy, and I submit to the gynocracy. So I thought I was just ideologically gynocentric, but no, I am a citizen and a subordinate of the gynocracy. But this guy is truly a simp. Now, Nicholas Chauvin was a soldier in the Grand Army of Napoleon Bonaparte. And they said he was the most loyal soldier to the end. And this man had been injured over a dozen times, had his body maimed and broken, fighting on the front line for the fever dreams of Napoleon. And to the end of his life, as he lived and languished in poverty, he never gave up love for Napoleon, and he never gave up his love for France, for his nation. So he was hyper nationalistic. He had blind loyalty. Think about what religion requires. He was blindly loyal. He was hostile to anyone outside of that limited circle. So any non-Frenchman or any Frenchman that didn't believe as strongly as he did. And his beloved leader, Napoleon Bonaparte, was famous for his disregard for the common people. In fact, Napoleon Bonaparte rose to power. His first major act is he was a soldier in the military, and there was a peasant uprising because the peasants were starving and they were being brutalized and exploited by the state. And Napoleon says, I can put down these riots, because they had trouble putting down the riots because the soldiers would walk out there with pikes and batons and beat up the peasants, hit them over the head with sticks. But there were always more peasants than there were soldiers. And the starving peasants was like, what's a few hits in the head? I'm starving. I'm dying of starvation. So what is it? Taking a few hits in the head to get some food and get my point across is nothing, right? And then Napoleon was like, you're not going to put down riots with billy clubs and like shields like they do now. He brought up the cannons and pointed the cannons at the common peasants and blew them away. He obliterated them and put down the riots. And that's how he started rising in the ranks of the military and eventually became an emperor, by literally having utter disregard for his fellow countrymen. Napoleon didn't give a damn about his people. He saw his people, his soldiers, his countrymen as a means to an end. They were tools. They were NPCs, and he was the main character. And so for an individual to love something that treats you like an insect, and have utter love and blind loyalty for something that treats you like an insect, that's chauvinism. So literally, to be a true believer in a monotheistic religion, you have to be chauvinist, even if you're not a male chauvinist. That is a chauvinistic relationship by very definition. You know, if you believe you got the ultimate truth in the one God, you have an innate hostility, even though we got dialogue between the religions. We know these religions. And why do you want to dialogue to somebody who thinks you're damned? A pork-eating Christian goes sit across from a devout Muslim and say, we're going to speak in peace and respect of our various communities. And the back of both of their heads like, this motherfucker gonna burn. This motherfucker's about to burn. But I'm gonna act polite because we're in polite circles. It's all good. So, actually, that was what a chauvinist was considered. A patriotic simp, a simple-minded, patriotic super simp who had love and adoration for institutions or individuals that didn't give a fuck about you. But God loves me because God knows every hair on my head. If God will let me starve, God will let the police pull me over, beat the shit out of me, God will let me suffer from old age and disease, God will let me have a bad credit score, get credit for everything that happens good, that's God. Everything that happens bad is my own fault or the devil. That is a chauvinistic mentality. That's what Napoleon loves me. Napoleon don't care. You're just one of a billion. Napoleon, if only Napoleon, everything good in my life is Napoleon. And everything bad in my life is because I didn't fight hard enough for Napoleon. And so the actual term that we're familiar with that associated chauvinism with sexism and misogyny actually came more than a century later. In the 60s, the feminist movement revived the concept or term chauvinist. and they tied it to a male chauvinist pig. And the pig part of it came from Orwell. If you know Animal Farm, and the pigs betrayed the revolution, so the pigs pretended to be on the side of the all the other animals, but ended up being as bad as the farmer. Well, the male chauvinist pig was kind of pointed at a lot of leftist men, a lot of progressive men, a lot of liberal men who said, yeah, let's fight the system, let's fight the man. And they found out that many of those men are just as predatory and dismissive and sexist as the men in power. So the men in power were chauvinist, and you expected them to be, and that's why we were rising up to fight them. But we got guys who are within the movement, liberal and progressive, and even so-called revolutionary men within the movement who are also chauvinist. So you're a pig. You're here, you claim to want to help the oppressed and want to specifically help women, and you agree with us and you understand our plight, but you're a male chauvinist pig. So they evolved it, and chauvinists went from being a hyper nationalist to being someone specifically who demeans women. And so it was redefined as a male chauvinist is a man who thinks women are weak, less important, unworthy, less intelligent, that women are inherently deceptive or manipulative. Women are property. Women are obligated to men just by existing. I'm a man and I exist. Therefore, certain women are obligated to serve me, to date me, to pleasure me. And women are overall inferior. And so that's what a male chauvinist is. So if you look at the characteristics of a male chauvinist in a political, historical, and ideological sense, it overlaps perfectly with a religious man. If you replace Napoleon with God, if you replace the nation with the religion, you ain't even got to do no adjustment in the woman part as far as the male, and then that's in the ideological and cultural context. But in the context of women, you ain't got to make no adjustments. In fact, you're better off going, if you've never heard of God and a missionary comes to your land and you're already a sexist, you're already misogynist, you're already a male chauvinist pig, then you wouldn't have to make any changes there. You might have to stop watching porn, but other than that, your views on women and how you treat women wouldn't be that much different. So I say that is my proof that these religions are all male chauvinist by nature, through practice, through doctrine, through dogma, through practice. Christianity, Islam, and Judaism are indeed male chauvinist. Now, I'll try to get into more detail of that. So I support my first argument that it is male chauvinist. But okay, fine. We got some things to work on, my Lord, and I'm going to be in intensive prayer to work on this. Right? But it ain't a murder cult. How you going to call my belief a murder cult? I ain't killed nobody. And what Dub C say? What did WC say from West Side Connection? You got to claim your set. You got to claim your set. You can't claim a set and then separate yourself. You got to claim, if that's your set, that's your set. Whatever you banging, that's what you banging. You got to fly your colors. I can't go join the street gang and then be like, well, I'm anti-drug distribution. I'm anti-gun. I'm anti-violence. I'm all these good things. No, then why you claiming? Don't claim it if it ain't you, if it don't reflect you, and you can't go in and be the one good guy. The one good Klansman, the one bloodthirsty Christian. It don't work like that. That institution, that belief system existed before you, and it's not going to conform to you. You have to conform to it. So that's my saying. Yes, it is inherently, intrinsically, and inextricably chauvinistic, male chauvinist. Right? And I'll get more into that, but I want to talk about the murder cult part, right? What is murder? We all know murder, unlawful killing, taking of a life, right? But is a religion a cult? So let me just say, let me explain the difference between a cult and religion, because the difference is quite minor. It's quite minute. Now, there are some specific differences that I think are relevant. So the difference between a religion and a cult is basically, I used to say, just to be cute, the difference between a religion and a cult is the body count. The difference between a religion and a cult is a body count. A cult is a religion that hasn't killed enough people. And that does hold up to examination. If you look at all the deaths that can be attributed to holy wars or whatever else, you'll see that the world religions got 7, 8-figure counts just in the last century, right? But people don't like that. So then you could say, in a more formal way, a cult is a religion that has not inundated the larger society. A religion is a cult that has inundated. Christianity was seen as a cult until it took state power, until it associated and aligned itself with state power. Thanks to Emperor Constantine. Judaism was the same way. Judaism was some weirdo cult that eventually became a state power and established. Same thing with Islam. Islam started off as a band of zealous caravan raiders until they took state power. If Scientology took, I mean, it's what, and I think in our lifetime, we're watching a cult evolve into a religion, and that's Mormonism, which was a Christian cult that is pretty much respected. We've had one presidential candidate who was a Mormon, and that's the White Horse Prophecy. I ain't gonna get into the White Horse Prophecy, but we had a Mormon religious candidate. That would have never happened 50 years ago, 25 years ago, 30 years ago. I don't think it could have happened in the 80s. A Mormon, especially for Republican Party, because the Republican Party is a theocratic party at this juncture, or a theocratic cult. So if you're ever curious about the difference between a cult and a religion, or the transition from a cult and religion, you'll notice that cults are isolated from the dominant society that they're within. There's a level of isolation from family, community, and the larger society. Religions don't require that. So I could go become a Christian or a Muslim tomorrow and still pretty much navigate the world the same way I do. Show up at family gatherings, continue my relationship with my wife, and keep all my friends and all that shit. But if I go and become a Black Hebrew Israelite, or if I become a Scientologist, or go join the family, then it would require me to put my distance between myself and the rest of my community and my family. So that's one characteristics of a religion that doesn't exist within a cult. And then the punishments for violations, like if you commit a violation of the tenets of a cult, the punishments are outside of social pressure and cultural norms. If you belong to Islam in America, which is different than Islam in Saudi Arabia, is different than Islam in Senegal, I'll admit, but you'll find that established religions, when there is a penalty, if you commit a sin of Islam in the United States, in Senegal, in Saudi Arabia, those consequences will be aligned within the social standards, social pressure, and cultural norms. But when you have cults, when you commit a cult violation of the cult, and it can be of varying degrees. Some places it can be very intense punishment, but those intense punishments are aligned with the larger society. Whereas in a cult, if you commit some type of violation, they'll lock you in a room somewhere, or they'll brand you or something. So you'll notice when cults start transitioning, they have fewer consequences. Like if in one cult, Jehovah's Witness, that's a cult. If you violate the tenets of Jehovah's Witnesses, you get disfellowshipped. And when you're disfellowshipped, if I was Jehovah's Witness and I get disfellowshipped, I can't speak to my wife, I can't speak to my children, I can't speak, no member of the Jehovah's Witness can have any interaction with me. Now, if I'm a Christian and my wife could go to the pastor tomorrow and say, Pastor, my husband online looking at cheeks, he's looking at pornography online, he's drinking liquor, He's swearing and using the Lord's name in vain. Lord, my husband is a wicked man. Now, the Christian minister is not going to say, well, you don't talk to him and nobody in church. He's going to be like, well, you pray for your husband and you have him give me a call. Or if we're Catholic, they'll be like, well, tell him to come to confession, because the punishments are a lot less harsh. So that's another thing. Punishments for violating the tenets of a cult are outside of social norms and social pressure. And finally, cults have greater requirements for memberships and material contributions. So if I become a Christian or a mainstream Muslim tomorrow, I ain't got to change my name. I ain't got to change how I dress. I mean, maybe if I dressed outside of the norm for a man, my wife might have to. But again, I could come on here and just have a little funny hat, and all of a sudden, I done found God in some religion. But if I join a cult, that's a whole different ball game. I got to change my name, drop my last name, and all this other weird shit. Start to dress and dress like everybody else and all this weird shit. So that's pretty much the difference. And those aren't very grand differences, because every single religion at one time had very harsh punishments for violations, isolated themselves. So every religion started off as a cult. And every cult, if it sticks around long enough, no matter how weird it is, it evolves into a religion. It's a give and take. The Mormons were like, what do I have to do to be a real religion? And, okay, I'll stop polygamy. Wink, wink. I'll say that black people have souls, because they used to teach, Mormons taught that blacks didn't have soul. Wink, wink. Give us an NBA team. Give us, they went to New Orleans and colonized the New Orleans Jazz and brought them to Utah, as if anybody associates Utah with jazz. Weird shit. So religion is a huge cult, and a cult is a small religion. So murder cult, yes. And there's another component to a cult that overlaps with religion. And that's the bite model. Does your religion cause you to change your behavior or dictate your behavior? Does your religion control the type and quality of information you're allowed to consume? Censorship or self-censorship. Christian broadcast channel. They even got Christian movies. I can't believe y'all let that Cry Freedom movie. There's an anti-sex trafficking movie sponsored by the Mormon Church, which is a known sex trafficker. Y'all some suckers. Cry Freedom. What the fuck is that movie? Y'all get on my nerves. Woo, what's that? What is that movie? Freedom movie? Sound of Freedom? Don't even make sense. Yes. Sound of Freedom. Raise your hand if you saw that movie. Shame on you if you did anything other than watch the bootleg. That is some Christian nationalist propaganda, and it is very dangerous. It ain't about saving children. It's about ownership, control, and manipulation of the suffering of children. But I ain't going to get into Sound of Freedom. It just makes my stomach turn that Christian propaganda is outselling capitalist propaganda. Anyway. But yeah, there's Christian media, there's Christian music, there's Christian literature. So all your information, the pastors and the imams will tell you, this is the good source to get your information. Right? Behavior. Yeah, we all know Christian and behavior. Your thoughts, thinking unclean thoughts and pure thoughts and the devil's thoughts, or the God speaking to you through your thoughts, and your emotion. Emotionally stimulating, emotionally manipulating you, being in good standing with your church and your community, or bad standing. Christianity, Islam, and Judaism all implore and impose the bite model on its members, i.e. victims. So even though formally, because it doesn't meet all the characteristics, it would be more appropriate to say male chauvinist murder religion instead of male chauvinist murder cults. But I think in this context, cult and religion are interchangeable. Right? Some of y'all out there is like, well, wait, what about murder? And the reason I keep talking about these three religions, because I know some of y'all, you're a Muslim and you really think your Allah is not Yahweh and your religion is so different and unique, or your Jesus Christ is your Lord and Savior, and the Jews and the Muslims don't believe in the divinity of Christ, or you're Jewish and say we set this whole shit off Abraham, we are the children of Abraham, God's chosen, but y'all all pretty much doing the same shit. Christianity is a bastardized remix of Judaism, and Islam is a bastardized remix of Judaism and Christianity with some Arab nationalism sprinkled on top, cherry on top. Because the main elements of those religions are all the same. Monotheism. They're all three monotheistic. They believe in all the same prophets except for two. Except for two. They don't believe, like, Christians say Jesus wasn't a prophet, he was God. Jews say he was real and he was a messenger, but he's not a Messiah. And the Muslims say that Jesus was a prophet. So they disagree a little bit on the status of Jesus, what Jesus can justifiably put on his resume, and then Muhammad. Muslims say he was the official and final prophet of God, and Jews and Christians say he wasn't none of that. But other than that, all the other prophets, Isaac, Abraham, what are those funny ass songs they had children singing? All those other religions, it's all the same. It's more overlap. They got more in the fall of man, end times. The Christians and the Muslims, Armageddon, end times. The Jews call it the end of days or versus the end of time. They all believe that God's gonna put a plug on this shit, and justifiably so. They're all fucking what do you call that shit? Apocalyptic religions. And they all believe in Adam and Eve and the fall of man. They all say it's so much. It's more they agree on than they don't agree. Well, it's not even that they disagree on something. They just how they advance it and how they apply it. They believe the same shit, but they interpret it and apply it in a different way. I'm just saying, y'all not that unique. You're not that special, right? And what about the murder cults? Okay, even if I believe it's religion, cult, whatever, we ain't killing nobody. Here are a list of capital offenses with Islam. Adultery, they can kill you. Witchcraft, doesn't even specific what witchcraft is, which is why so many women got burnt and murdered and mutilated and lynched, because there's no specificity of, women who were good at herbs, women who could read, women who had skills and ability, women who got old and the husband didn't want them no more and he wanted to get a young underage girl to bring in to replace his wife. Witchcraft, his wife is a witch. So you could be killed for adultery, you could be killed for witchcraft, you could be killed for murder, you could be killed for rape, you could be killed for kidnapping, you could be killed for consuming or producing pornography. You could be killed for apostasy. And apostasy is renouncing your religion and adopting, either just renouncing your religion and moving on, or renouncing your religion and following a new religion, or acknowledging another God other than Allah. Blasphemy, shit like displaying an image of Allah or denying the divinity of Muhammad, all that. Apostasy and rebellion. Rebellion against the state, rebellion against any authority is a capital crime. And I know some of y'all sick enough to be like, well, you should get killed. Y'all pro-death penalty maniacs, as if the state or religion ever should have the authority to take a person's life. Duh, when has that ever not been abused? And I know we in the West, we in the United States, we get instead a steady diet of Islamophobia. I acknowledge that Islamophobia is real, and I oppose Islamophobia. And 9/11, I lived in New York City, and I was a student, a pre-med student at Brooklyn College, and I was in chemistry class on 9/11. I was in chemistry lab when the plane hit the World Trade Center, and I was taking my beakers because we had to take they were like really tight on budget. So whenever you had to go and check out all your lab tools, the beakers and the burners, everything, it used to just be in the room on the shelves, but they had a locked room and you had to sign shit in. And so I took my wares for that day, whatever experiment I was doing, and I took it to the thing, and the guy behind the glass, who was a student worker, was listening to the radio. And Kids don't even know what a radio is. FM radio. And they had taken over. He was listening to music. They shut it down and said, New York City's under attack. And so they ended class. After that class, I had a music interpretation and appreciation class, which I really liked that class. And that woman was actually Jewish, and she was crying tears, and she sent us all home. And I was actually like, oh, there was some accident, but hey, I get a day off class. Maybe I'll get off tomorrow too. Then I found out what it was on the way home, and I called my friend Woza, and I'm like, you want to go to Manhattan? So we walked across the Brooklyn Bridge, and we were actually there before the second tower fell. It's a crazy story. But after that, there was unrelenting attacks. They pulled up a barge, and they were just snatching anybody that looked. They were taking Sikh, they were taking East Indian people, anybody that looked swarthy. Anybody, they were snatching them. And I was in Brooklyn College, and I was working with the Palestinian students to fight against the persecution of Muslims, because I don't believe that Muslims should be persecuted. Let me tell you something. I love Muslims. I love Christians. I love my people. It is the institution, the oppressive institution with the power and the resources that I oppose. I don't oppose the people. I will debate, I will argue, I will disagree with the people, but I don't believe in persecuting someone for their beliefs, even if I disagree with their beliefs. And I believe in allowing people to do what they want to based on their beliefs, as long as they don't impose or harm others. People get that confused so much. So I was very active. In the opposition to the persecution of Muslims in New York. I mean, they were snatching people. If you look, like I said, a lot of Sikh people got beat up and locked up because they had turbans on and beards. Any man that wasn't with a beard, shit was crazy. And it was weird because I go home in those following days after 9/11, and they'd be like, how America's coming together and how America's united and how we're going to stand together. And it was very violent. And I was out there advocating, trying to track people down. There were mothers, from Pakistan, ain't got shit to do with ain't never been, couldn't find Afghanistan on the map, just Pakistani Muslims, a lot of Indonesian Muslims that were in New York. In Indonesia, they're not even Arab, they're freaking Asian. And we were tracking people down, trying to find out who was accounted for and stuff. And a lot of, mainly men, they were attacking men, some women too. And I was there. So I have seen Islamophobia and persecution, religious persecution of Muslims. And I've put myself on the line to defend people who are unjust. I don't support any unjust persecution of anyone for any reason. Anyway, I don't know why I got into that. But I'm saying, what I was saying is, we are fed a steady diet of the crimes of Islam in the United States. United States is in U.S. media, especially right-wing reactionary media, is very enthusiastic of telling us about the acid attacks and the honor killings and all that stuff, and all the dysfunction and persecution in the burqa and freeing women from the hijab and the burqa. So even though I'm listing these things, most people that consume predominantly Western media, English-speaking media, already know this. But what they're not so made aware of, that in Christianity and Islam, and let me tell you, Christians, because y'all like to exempt y'all selves from a lot of this shit, but your Lord and Savior Jesus Christ said, I came to fulfill the law, not to abolish it. Look it up. Jesus did not cancel the Old Testament. Jesus was a fulfillment of prophecy, not a reform or a transformation. The only thing Jesus changed was the route through salvation. But he didn't even change that, because in the Old Testament, when you committed a sin, you would make a sacrifice. And Jesus was the final and ultimate sacrifice. But Jesus said, I came to fulfill the law. He validated the law. He did not change the law. So all the backwardsness and degeneracy and violence of the Old Testament, you brand new Christian, tree hugging, progressive, Unitarian, if you call yourself a Christian, that's the set you claim. And that's your heritage and the weight you carry. So I'll say, in Christianity and Judaism, punishable by Christianity and Judaism, because we already went over Islam, capital, murder cult. In Christianity and Judaism, kidnapping. Now, when you hear the word kidnapping, it's not as we understand kidnapping in modern sense. Kidnapping means a man owned his children and a man owned his wife. The people under a man in the hierarchy in Christianity were his property. Your wife was not your partner. That's a new concept. That's one thing we kind of adopted from the LGBTQAI community that I think is relatively positive, referring to your significant other as your partner. Because up until that women, especially in the biblical context, are not seen as partners. They are servants. They are subordinates. They exist to help you to function in the world. They are a helpmeet for your ambitions. So kidnapping could be qualified as, I see this girl I like and she likes me. And without her father's blessing, we're going to go off and make a life together. I'm depriving that man of his property. Kidnapping, murder. And if the daughter does not stand there and see her beloved boyfriend or fiance and say, yes, I did not go with him, they'll stone us both. So when they say kidnapping in Islam and it's depriving a man of his human property, that's kidnapping. If I was a slave and I run away, I'm kidnapping myself because I don't own myself. I am to serve my master as he serves God. Right? So kidnapping, disobedient children, death penalty. I haven't seen that in the Quran. It might be there, but I haven't seen that. You kill disobedient children, striking a parent for any reason, even if that parent is abusing you, defending yourself from a parent. Children are property. So striking a parent, death penalty. Adultery, again, death penalty. 90% of you Christians should just go ahead and throw yourself. Now, let me not suggest that. 90% of you Christians, no, y'all wouldn't be here today. I wish this was tea because I should be sipping tea instead of, now this is lukewarm chocolate instead of hot chocolate. Adultery, homosexuality. Oh, I didn't put homosexuality in the Muslim side. I think I put pornography. What reason I didn't put, because as I was reviewing pornography, homosexuality, incest, bestiality, they put all those on the same line because they see all those as the same, believe it or not. But one thing they didn't say, statutory rape, sexual exploitation of children, that's not on Islam's list. Sex with children, or what do you call pedophilia, Islam, Christianity, Judaism, abusing or sexual exploitation of the underaged ain't on nobody's list. Just letting you know that. But let's keep going. Homosexuality, witchcraft again. Dang, y'all got a lot in common. Working on the Sabbath. Islam didn't have that. And working on the Sabbath, I don't mean just tilling soil. If you push a button, if you turn a knob, if you click on a light switch, death. Your God wants to kill you. Bestiality, kudos to that. Even though there's a lot of bestiality in the Bible, and I didn't recall God killing anybody for it, but it's in there. So I didn't even know that. That was a surprise to me. God wants to kill you for bestiality. And worship of other gods. Right? So blasphemy and apostasy. So you'll notice a lot of these capital, which means you can be killed for any of these offenses. Now, there's several other offenses that aren't in the Bible, but religion has killed people for. But it's a pretty list that I would say the majority of people listening to me, would be dead if these were the laws of the land. Even if you don't think you were, I guarantee you, especially if in some times, in some ways, you ride on an airplane, man shouldn't go. I mean, witchcraft, just anything could be called witchcraft. That alone would take most of y'all out. Disobedient children, how many of us would have made it through childhood, adolescence, teens? And really, if you're a woman, you're defined as a child until your father marries you off. Right? Adultery. Some of y'all Christians working on the Sabbath, oh, we're all done. It's a wash. So it's a murder cult. It has a lot of rules for murder. An exceptionally large number of things you can be killed for. So I will say that religion is male, chauvinist, murder cult. If you're a Christian, Muslim, or Jewish, or Black Hebrew, or any sect, you are a member of a male chauvinist murder cult. And I understand that most people who believe now cherry pick what they believe. Nobody, and even the term fundamentalist is considered a very negative term. God hates women. Yahweh does not like women. I could really get into the chauvinist part. I just got shit for days, about women and restriction of women and the veneration of men and manhood. I could go on for days. But femicide, there's a high rate of femicide in one, but I say that's my case. I don't think it's hyperbole or even an insult to call the world religions male chauvinist murder cults. And I could do one on Hinduism, because Hinduism and Buddhism are just as backwards. And it does annoy me a bit that so many people get into Eastern religions and Eastern practices, and they get these tattoos, and they buy these little gongs and these little bells, and they get these incense, and they get these beautiful sculptures. The Buddha and the Hindu god sculptures are very beautiful aesthetically, but they get this shit and they think they've escaped. They're no longer part of a regressive murder cult. But I've got really bad news. And like I said, we can get into that if you'd like to. And now, I'd like the congregation, if you see fit, to go into your hearts to support. If you appreciate this content, even if you don't agree with it, I said appreciate. Because if I said agree, I'm going to be starving over here. I ain't getting nothing. So I didn't say agree. Listen to the words. If you appreciate this content, please like, share, subscribe, comment. I got some people, I'm up to 4,000 subscribers, which is a lot for me. And for my type of content, I think that's like the upper echelon for when you're keeping it real. So please like, share, subscribe, become a Patreon, CashApp, Venmo. Please support and sustain the BroDiallo broadcast. I got another book review in the works, mad shit to do. And now I don't really have the support network. A lot of my support network has kind of fallen out. I went over that in the last broadcast. I won't keep, laying my burdens down on my listeners. But I ain't got nowhere else to be like, y'all got an almighty being to put your burdens on. I just got y'all. All I got is y'all. So, but I'm not going to burden you again. But like the support has dried up quite a bit. And I haven't even recovered from COVID. Y'all don't even talk about COVID no more. And I'm still trying to recover from all the ground I lost during the COVID-19 shutdown and all that. But anyway, I ain't trying to guilt you into it. Just if it's on your heart, if the spirit put it on your heart to make a contribution to the BroDiallo broadcast, do it. Now, I like to open this up for questions, comments, and criticism. But before I do that, let me just say a couple of comments I saw that I start. Where I think there is a ban of ski masks in Philadelphia. I think this is hysterics. I think this is hysterics and reactionary politics and policies. If there is an influx where it's not even a crime spree, really, but banning ski masks is racist. We know that the masks are associated with poor, working class, Black youth. And so I think it's racist. I think it's no different than just 5-6 years ago, they were talking about banning sagging pants, banning bandanas, and they never want to ban the conditions that create or lead to delinquency and other things that they claim they're trying to address by banning this. So it's racist. I don't support any type of bans or those type of restrictions. I think it's an overreach by the government. And so I disagree with it. And I hope people resist it. They should have like a citywide march where everybody wear the band. And so Diallo, Who do you think woke you up today? Your wife? Yeah, she actually did. She woke me up. My wife had an early meeting this morning, and I was gonna call myself trying to sleep in because but anyway, yeah, my wife actually did wake me up. My alarm clock. No, I only have to set my alarm clock if I need to be up before 6 a.m. because I generally wake myself up around 6 a.m., 6:15 latest. So I will only if I have to get up at 4 or 5, and the only time I'm doing those type of hours if I got some prior obligation or if I'm traveling. But so especially driving. When I drive, I like to drive when the sun's just coming up. So I don't use an alarm clock that frequently because, like I said, I can get myself up at any time, 6 o'clock or after that, I'm up. But if I have to be up before 6, I just set the alarm. No, it was God. How do you demonstrate that God woke me up? Santa is coming for you this Christmas. I hope so. But I would like to think that's being facetious. Anyway, any other questions, comments, criticism? I will share the link in the comments if you want to chime in via video. Let's see. Uh, Diallo, I'm in New York. You up to date on the migrant issues in the city? Yes. Chicago and New York were both my sanctuary cities, and so the reactionary fascist um, governors of California and not California. He's a reactionary liberal, reactionary right wing fascists of Texas and Florida have been sending and trafficking, illegally trafficking migrants and refugees to both cities. So we have pretty much the same issue. And I don't like to say things like food crisis because there is no shortage of food in the city or in the world. This is a capitalist crisis. 40% of all food that's grown is gone. Almost half of all food that is in production goes to waste. We produce enough food on earth to feed everybody on this planet and a whole nother second planet. So the problem is not if you have a food crisis, even the old famines, the famines in Ethiopia, the famines in Syria, and even go back in time, the famine in Australia, all those famines were product of capitalism, imperialism, mercantilism. So it's not a food crisis, it's a capitalist crisis. But yeah, I got family. I go to New York at least once a year. I got family and loved ones all through New York. So yeah, I am familiar with it. And it's the same situation that's going on here. So yeah, I don't have to go to New York to see the migrant issues because they're identical here, being it's a hypocritical liberal sanctuary city, or I call sanctuary hypocrisy. Oh, I didn't know that, bro. Well, let me know if it's something I could do for you. I'm indebted to you. I'm glad your support dried up. I don't think I could ever repay you. You're gonna be be kicking in my door with the student loan people. Because James, you've been a supporter, so it's no sweat. I could tell you, man. There's been certain years over the years. It's been times I'm like, I'm gonna wrap this shit up. I'm sick of this BroDiallo shit. And you are one of the main people that inspire me to keep going. So, even if it's not material support, just knowing you still here. But you holler at me. Let's go get lunch or coffee or something. And if I can help you in any way, let me know. What else? Anything else? I know all about Reformed Christians. Which Reformed sect you call? Christianity is like a cancer. If you know anything about cancer, it does two things. It divides and it mutates. So, I mean, unless there's some new Christian factions, and I used to own a vegan catering company, my wife and I, and the Unitarian Universalists used to love hiring us. The Christian liberals or the Christian progressives. And I've done so many. I mean, I know about the Christian Reformed Christian. Hell, I was raised a Reformed Christian. Baptists are Reformed, the Reformation. I mean, I was raised a Baptist. So can you be more specific? Because just saying, looking into anything that's not Eastern Orthodox, any Christian that's not Catholic or Eastern Orthodox is by definition a Reformed Christian. So which one you talking about? You got to be more specific. And I can tell you if I looked into it. Yeah, I think that's racist. What else? Is that it? Y'all want to holler at me? An episode on Hindu and Buddhism would be dope, and how their societies have also transitioned to capitalist. Oh yeah, if y'all want to do it, I know, and let me not be insensitive. Hinduism and Buddhism is ravaging the East. There is so much dysfunction and harm done by those religions. It's just that those religions here are like boutique religions. They don't really have that power and impact here, especially on the Black community, like Christianity, Islam, and Black Hebrewism cult. So I can talk about them, but maybe that's just wrong of me to kind of focus on over here. But I think I should. I think it would do well, because the vast majority of people live in the East, in Asia. So maybe I should. Because when people think about colonialism and religious repression and militant religious fundamentalism, they don't think about Buddhism. They don't think about Hinduism. Very regressive, very sexist and misogynist, very predatory, and very imperialistic, believe it or not. So yeah, we'll talk about that. Maybe we'll do a part 2 on male chauvinist murder cults of the East. Netanyahu. Hey, X, hey, I admire you, brother. Because you're a strong brother. You came up out of that. I struggled to come up out of Christianity. I can't imagine coming out of it was hard for me to get over my Christian indoctrination. I broke free, and I never, even though I would explore and read and study strictly from a academic point of view, Islam and Kemetic religions and African spirituality, I never really gave into, like, became a believer like I was. I was a full-on Christian, Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior, and baptized into the faith. And it took me, I left the church at 14. And it took me till I was almost 30 to really free myself of the indoctrination. So the fact that you broke free of 2 religions, you've done twice as much as me, because I've only managed to break free. I can't imagine if I left Christianity and went into something else and having to go through that de-indoctrination or psychological deconstruction of that, man. So respect to you. Can you be a Muslim or a Christian and still be a revolutionary in their worldview? See, the good revolutionaries are bad Christians. So yes, you can be a Christian and a Muslim and a revolutionary if you don't adhere to the tenets of Christianity and Islam. Rebellion is a sin. Rebellion is a capital offense. So what you'll find, like, people always love telling me Garvey was a Christian. I'm like, yes, Garvey, Martin Luther King was a Christian. Malcolm X was a Muslim. He was a member of a Muslim cult, and then became a mainstream Muslim. But if you look at the tenets and the teachings and the practices, you will see that they were very bad Christians and very bad Muslims. They were bad Christians and bad Muslims. So yes, and by default, because religion is so pervasive in this society, most people, I don't know, I'm gonna just say it. I shouldn't say it because I don't want no trouble. But I'm gonna say it. My wife's family, they are more affluent than my family. These are educated people. This Cosby type. My wife come from like Cosby type, lettered Negroes of prominence. Like, I go around Chicago and I see placards with her people. Her people are good people, right? Her people are good. I married up on purpose. I wasn't even playing, so I like Dr. Umar. I saw that wife resume and I'm like, damn, I stamped it immediately. I didn't even look at no resume. So she comes from good people. And what tends to happen with affluent black people is they become secular Christians because they don't have to worry about where my next meal's coming from. Oh Lord, a bill. Oh, I got the landlord at my front door and the police at my back door. Oh. So they didn't have those type of concerns. And so what evidence shows is that the more affluent people become, the less day-to-day religious they are. So if you ask her affluent, educated relatives, they will say, of course we're Christians. Oh, yes, we are Christians. We're good Christians in good standing. But they don't depend on the Lord. Right? And so they're just Christian. But my family would. I don't say they're not good Christians or anything that, but my family believed, let me start this comment. My family would say they're churchianity. They ain't good, because my family, we would say, like, we would have to pray for food. We would have to deal with addiction, and my family was dealing with mess. Like, my wife married down, and now she's stuck. But my family went through a lot, living in the PJs and welfare and free cheese and all that shit. Government cheese. I can't tell you, boy, government cheese. I can taste it now. I haven't had any cheese in 30 years. I've been a vegan for over 30 years, and I can still, when I say government cheese, I can taste it. Now, my people go to church every day. They, half my uncles are ministers. My older brothers are all Muslims, and a couple of my brothers got converted to Islam in jail. My dad converted to Islam. He was raised Muslim. And my folks is mad religious. So what they find is people who are in times of strife and ongoing struggle and deprivation tend to be more religious. So in terms of calling someone a Christian, you can be a practicing, active, engaged Christian, or just a Christian by default. Like me, I'm a Christian. My grandmother, rest in peace, Grandma Sonetta, she was like, boy, I ain't worried about your soul, because you can't unsave yourself. I stood before the church and accepted Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior, and I took the instruction and I made the vow and I got baptized, and I came up out of that water born again. And in my grandmother's particular sect of baptism, you can't unbaptize yourself. So I am forever washed in the blood. I cannot be a non-Christian. So if someone was writing my biography, by default, I don't go to church, I don't pray, I do read the Bible, but not for insights, but to find shit to tear down and criticize, woo, 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 right? So all that to say, there have been many, like, Christians, and unless you, as a revolutionary, make a definitive statement to say, I am an atheist, I reject religion, you can be defined as a Christian or a Muslim. But most Christians and Muslims I know of weren't particularly religious or practicing. Now, Judaism is the oldest monotheist religion, right? So they have a concept of a secular Jew and a practicing Jew, or what they call tyrannic Jews and non-tyrannic Jews. But even though they have a formal establishment, you're just Jewish through culture, through birth, through ethnicity and community. So you're Jewish, but you're a secular Jew. Most Christians and most Muslims who are active in politics and that I have observed personally are also secular Christians or secular Jews, even though that terminology doesn't exist for those religions, it exists in practice. So I have met and I have read revolutionary Christians and revolutionary Muslims. Now, there's a question here that I think is a valid question from Jennifer. Hey, sis, long time no see. And I can hear I'm reading this in her voice. I've known Jennifer since what, 92? So I've known Jennifer a long time. So when I read this, I know how you're asking me. I get the inflection. I'm reading this in your voice. I'm not going to do your voice on the air. I'll just read it normally. But believe me, I'm reading this in your voice. How was Malcolm a bad Muslim when he converted? Now, this is why Malcolm was a bad Muslim. Malcolm came out and said, leave your religion at home. Put your religion in the closet. Malcolm X said was a secular. He formed the Organization of Afro-American Unity, which was a secular Pan-Africanist organization. Number one, no true Muslim, because just like Christianity, Islam is an evangelical. It is a religion that spreads. It is an imperialistic religion. So it is bad. You're not considered a good Muslim if you are not spreading or pushing the faith. He literally, in his own words, put African decolonization and liberation and African liberation above Allah and the spread of the word. And that is not consistent with the practices, culture, or history of Islam. So you now go find me, a practicing devout Muslim, that would say, leave your religion at home. Put your religion on the shelf. Bring your politics, your ideology, and the political mission and put that before religion. Compromise your drive and your obligation to spread the word of Allah. Put the spreading liberation ideology and organization before that. Then when he got up and said, leave your religion at home, put it in the closet, because if we talk religion, we're going to fight. That alone leads me to say, wow, I haven't heard that from a Muslim before or since in relationship to Pan-African struggle or relationship to Black struggle at all. And in fact, when I go to organizations that are supposed to be secular, that I've been a member of, and say, hey, let's not do this religious shit. We ain't going to open and close with prayers. Hey, let's not even do libations. Let's just focus and be secular. People get mad. So I think he was a bad Muslim. And believe you me, when I call you a bad Muslim or Christian, I'm complimenting you. It's not a criticism. My beef is with the good Christians, with the fundamentalist Christians, with the good Muslims and the fundamentalists. They're the ones I have problems with. But I would define a bad Muslim as someone who does not adhere to the letter and the tenets of the belief system, is one that would put politics and ideology and secular agendas before the holy or divine mission. That's my assessment. I'm pretty sure if Brother Malcolm was not killed by another Muslim, not killed by the Nation of Islam, I'm sure he would probably disagree with me and call himself a good Muslim. And I would be like, okay, you're a good Muslim. But in my mind, a bad Muslim is a good man. A bad Christian is a good man. A bad Christian or Muslim is a good African. And the agenda and goals of Africa and African liberation are contrary to the agenda and goals of Africa, of Islam and the spread of Islam. Islam is a colonial religion that engages in conquest and oppression. Africa, the agenda of Pan-African is liberation and African sovereignty. And I, for one, have never seen any people get liberated under an alien belief system or alien God. But that's ultimately it. I think Malcolm X pretty much became a good man and a good revolutionary and a bad Muslim when he said, leave your religion at home. Okay. What? Any more questions? I don't know what I'm looking at here. Please leave Vincent David alone. Let him just spew his nonsense. Okay, here we go. Another question. B-dubs, is there room for white dudes in your goals? I ask as a white dude not looking to invoke reverse racism. I just don't feel welcome nowhere. And most folks happy to tell me why I'm not welcome. I get it. If you can shoot me the names of those people who don't welcome white folks, shout out to them. But yes, there is a room for white dudes in the movement. I always say, white people have the biggest issues than anyone else. And this being the day that Fred Hampton was assassinated, he had instructions for white people. He said white people in his time, he said you should throw gasoline on yourself and jump on Nixon, which he was being, somewhat comical, but also literal, which means that there are severe problems in the white community. So what people are rejecting, and it took us to reject, is the white savior trope. It is really weird that the people from the oppressor class come amongst the oppressed to do good work, right? That is not how you contribute, because if you are a white male, then you are part of, by default, by just born into, no choice of your own, I get it, into the oppressor caste or the oppressor class, you know, even if you were born poor and white or whatever. So what is curious is, why do so many good white people fail to do good work within their own community? Racism is rooted in your community. Capitalism is rooted in your community. Sexism, homophobia, fascism, theocratic revival. So a white male can do good by going to do work. If you want to do good work, why are you over there in the amongst like the groups that are oppressed? Why don't you attack up the hierarchy? So why aren't you at MAGA rallies? Why aren't you in the rally halls with the skinheads? That's what's curious to me about good white people. Why do good white people think they have to leave their white communities to do good? White people really want us to believe they won't even confront their racist uncle at a Thanksgiving table. They won't confront their racist uncle at the Thanksgiving table, but you want the oppressed masses of the world to believe that you're going to stand shoulder to shoulder with us against the machine, against the systems and institutions of white hegemony. So I understand there are severe problems within the white community, and you serve the rest of humanity. You contribute to the struggle by humanizing your people, demilitarizing your people, exposing the racist and the hidden racist of your people, by condemning, challenging, and destroying the infrastructure within your community that is the backbone and the core of the injustice. So my goal for white people is to humanize and liberate white people. The most heavily indoctrinated population in the West are white people. We all understand the brainwashing that minorities get. They distort our history, but European history is distorted as well. I mean, to tell us we came from a dark continent and never accomplished anything is a distortion of history. But also, we are the greatest people. We are the divine shining beacon on the hill. That is also a severe distortion of history. So teaching your people the truth, the same thing I do amongst my people, you need to go do amongst yours. Educate, radicalize, organize, and target. And believe you me, you won't have to come amongst the oppressed non-white people. We will recognize you. If we see you doing work in your community and doing real revolutionary work within your community to revolutionize and organize the left in your community, and attacking and destroying and undermining and subverting the right in your community, we will say your name. But it is very peculiar. It's like homophobia, right? I'm a cisgendered heterosexual male. And I understand that within the societal hierarchy, even though I am oppressed as a black man, I'm still above women. I'm above those uneducated. There's several people within the overall unjust hierarchy that I'm above, even though I'm not at the top, right? And so let's say transgender and homosexual people are under attack. And I'm like, that's bad. So I, as a cisgendered heterosexual man, I start going to the balls and the galas and the pride parades. Now, what the fuck do I have to do over there? I can do more work going amongst where the heterosexual men are. Going amongst my cousins and uncles, going to the barbershop, going to the ball game, going to where the cisgendered heterosexual men are and challenging their abuse. challenging and educating them, exposing them for their wrongdoing and their predation and their compounding abuse against a vulnerable population. And that's what I do. So I don't fight sexism or misogyny amongst women in women's spaces that they've created for themselves. I don't go around, hey, sisters, these men ain't shit. That's insincere. If I, as a man, as a cisgendered heterosexual man, I have access to spaces and I have standing that a woman or a queer person doesn't have. So why wouldn't I go to those and afford that, to use that? So it's very peculiar to me that a person who either has power or status or has the potential for power and status wants to come amongst the abused. It doesn't make sense to me. I oppose colonial. Every American should oppose U.S. imperialism. Should we all the Americans that are against U.S. imperialism go to Haiti? Should we go to Venezuela? Or we're here in the belly of the beast? Why don't we fight it here as U.S. citizens? The abuse and exploitation of refugees, we ain't got to go. So it's just that it's peculiar to me. So yes, there's room for you in my goals. And your space is amongst your people doing the revolutionary work within your community, amongst your people, because that's where the work is most needed. That's where the work is most needed. And if you're truly a revolutionary conscious, be like Marx. Humanize and educate your community. Radicalize and revolutionize your people. And then revolt and rebel and attack those within your community. So that's my place for you if what I say has any weight. Any more questions? Lead Clinton. Yes, cisgender. If you don't like terms and labels, it's funny how people that are in positions of status of legitimize who your identity, my identity is the standard. My identity is validated by the society. So I don't need a term. I don't understand why people got a problem with cisgender. And it's funny because a lot of the gender queer and queer people are like, yeah, we should get rid of all titles. And so you're kind of on that time, but it's more like, how dare you name me? It's like when they talk about minorities and women or mankind. It's like, I'm the default, so I don't get a title. You have to label and title everybody else. Lead. Oh, let me stop responding to lead. Be a racist like Marx. Man, people hate Marx. Most people don't read Marx. Let me just pretend. I'm going to assume that people who talk shit about Marx haven't read him. Does John Brown revolt without religion? I think so. I think he could revolt it without religion. But if that's what he used, so be it. But I think so. I think that everything could happen without religion. Ask yourself, does slavery happen without religion? Maybe he wouldn't have had to revolt without religion, because without religion, maybe there would be no slavery. So religion caused it, and if it takes a religious white man to start it, because a religious white man started, if it take a religious, but yeah, I think it's definitely possible. I do. I don't know what you're talking about. Okay, is that it? We're past time. Come on, we can shoot these. We can shoot off these questions rapid. The short answer, was Dr. Marimba Ani right when she talked about the self-image of Euro-Christians and Euro-Judaism, considering what's going on in Palestine? Yes, she was right. And we're gonna rapid fire these questions. Shortest answer possible. What do you think about the movie Birth of a Nation by Nate Parker? That was pro-Christian. It was pro-Christian propaganda. I did not like the movie. I hate how it pimped our great ancestor Nat Turner for the promotion of Christian theology and ideology. What's next? What are good reads on the Black Panthers? I'll give you super short. I'll give you a pamphlet. It won't even be a book. Read Bits and Pieces by Sundiata Acoli. One of the best. It's a pamphlet. So you can read that tonight. Free online. Okay, not a question. Have I read Man Not by Dr. Curry? No, someone promised to send me that book and they never sent it. So I haven't read it. I would like to read it. And I would definitely, when I get a copy of the book, I will definitely put it in there. But I haven't been proactive about securing a copy. And the guy who promised to send me a copy never sent it. No, he didn't send it. But I got a bunch of other books. So I will, when I get a copy, if I have to get my own, then so be it. And I do intend to, so I will make that book a priority because I've gotten more than one request to review it. What about all these employees building the bombs for the military? They should just quit. Yes, they should. Go make lattes for Gen Xers. That's it. You have a PDF. Okay, send me the PDF, man. I don't want to read the PDF, but okay, I prefer paper books. Look at all this gray in my beard. What I look like legit, but I will appreciate it. Let me not, the greatest crime a person can commit is be ungrateful. So you send me that copy, I'll review the PDF. Ugh. But okay. Another topic. Oops, sorry. C Mills. Off topic. Why doesn't Superman get involved in wars? It's two reasons. Superman believes that if he involved himself too directly in the major events of humanity, it will derail human evolution and make humans hyper dependent on him as a savior. That's why he tends to focus on interplanetary crisis and low-level crimes. But in diplomatic and international politics, he likes to excuse himself because he believes that that will create a dependency on him. And there have been stories that explored what would happen if Superman took away all the nuclear powers, or if Superman did start to take down tyrants and nations. And in all those stories, Superman ends up becoming a tyrant or world dictator. There's one story, Superman Injustice series and the Injustice video games, which I've played Injustice 1 and 2, big fun. But what happens is every time Superman goes and tries to do these grand gestures, he always ends up becoming the very thing he doesn't. So Superman deliberately and consciously limits not only his power, but limits and consciously limits his impact. So he can get a cat out of a tree, he can stop a villain from robbing a bank, but he will not stop a genocide. That's how it's written, because it would harm human evolution. Which is interesting, but I don't think that's off topic. We're talking about fantasy shit, religion, so might as well talk about some more interesting fantasy as opposed to mainstream religion. Okay, uh-oh, this is bad because I don't know. Who's Julianne? Who is that? I don't know who that is. Oh. Lack of support from Black people. I thought she was talking about Black people's lack of support for Israel, not her. I'm like, she didn't say we didn't support her. She said that Black people should support Israel. It's historically inaccurate. Can I help you? Can you help heat up this hot chocolate? I was talking most of the time. Well, that's it. Got to wrap this gavel up, B.
Wow.
Sorry.
Wow.
I was talking, and it's thick. You're right. You said I can't drink. That's what I said too. So just I'll go back to tea. I try to fly too close to the sun. I try to live too lavish. Anyway, thank you for listening. Like, share, subscribe, donate, contribute, Patreon, do all that shit. And I'll see y'all Wednesday Tune in Wednesday. Skip Coon will be here. We will be talking about revolution in retrograde. Bring a little spirituality to the struggle. Revolution in retrograde, rational radicals, earn your liberation every Friday. And that's it. Wife just came and called me out. And yeah, I didn't finish my hot chocolate. It's hard to drink hot chocolate. I can sip tea. So anyway, thank y'all. And I'll see y'all next Monday. And maybe we'll do a part 2 deal with some of the Eastern religions. Peace. Thank you for tuning in.